occurs, they will recur to that power plants. They will have like diesel generators, they will have battery systems, UPS, all that fancy stuff.
Hello.
Good morning. I'm going to be just in listen mode for a while.
Okay, well, Jerry was just on and handed over the whatever you want to call it, the controls. So I guess I'll just, oh, here's Doug. Hello.
Hello. Is there no OGM or is it a different link or what?
No, this is the OGM. Jerry's at a conference. He just handed over the hosting capabilities here.
Mazel tov.
You know what? I should know better than to come early, right? Hi, Rick. So people are showing up and then they go off camera.
No, no, I was going to do something. That's all. But for you, I'll stay on camera. Okay, Stacey?
There you
That's
go.
okay.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
Wait until the party started, and then come back. You're holding me accountable. Okay, are you hosting the show? Who's hosting the show today?
You know, just control, just technically.
Okay, good. Well, that means you're the host. Is Jerry not here today?
Yeah, he
No,
is.
he's at a conference.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So I was
Just to let you know, I can only be here for half an hour. So there's a spoil of riches things to attend, and it's a mastermind group that I'm involved with. So that's why I have to go at 11:30. Just FYI. So it's not. Don't take it personally. Okay.
I won't. But since it's just us, can you fill us in a little bit on the indivisible work and what's happening for this weekend?
Well, actually, I just came from a meeting. I belong to a Chicago group that has a morning coffee every morning at 10 o'clock on Eastern time. And I go to quite a few of them. I hosted a session last night, and it was about using a song, getting people identifying songs that they would like to hear or play, along with chants as well. I mean, I can wait. We can wait till the meeting begins, and I can share a little update. But there's over 1,600 events across. Unfortunately, it's not being well covered from the media, mainstream media. So it's really a grassroots level. And I've been working with NPR, our local radio station. And I think I've been able to get one of their staff members to actually attend the meeting. I just got to check my email. I haven't had time, but I went to an event where it was WFA had a equity gala where they were giving awards out for community service to equity. And I met up with the staff there, and unbelievably, none of them knew anything about the march.
Really?
It was, yeah. I mean, they're in the media, and I'm saying, which pulse are they listening to? Which just goes to show you that, mainstream media, this is all off mainstream media where it's getting promoted. And they have to do they have to double down and work with mainstream media. And PBS and NPR are obvious allies because they just got creamed. So they need to come back. Yeah, just got creamed. So, I mean, this is near terrorism. This is a war propaganda words. And that's what we're living through at the moment.
I just want to say one thing about music is, as you know, I'm really interested in that. I highly recommend using tunes from the anti-Vietnam era because what I know, at least about dealing with, my peers, is that way back then, they had a different heart and a different mindset. And if we could connect to that, I think it's sort of unifying.
Well, it's funny because there were two brainwaves that came up, and it's sort of something I knew, but it came from teachers. And one of them said, take a familiar tune that everybody knows,
Mhm.
and then have a two-line chant to it so that they know the tune and they sing it and can do it. Something simple.
So use that as a foundational ingredient for ritual.
Exactly.
Ritualize it.
It ritualize it.
I love
Absolutely.
that. I
I mean,
love that.
that came from a school teacher. She said, this is what we do with school kids. And I thought that was brilliant. And then the other person, the high point for me, somebody went onto Perplexity AI, picked out a tune and asked it to create a
Do
chant.
that.
Yeah. And it came up with, and a person came back and everyone said, wow. And she said, this Perplexity is just amazing. I mean, I know it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we all know what those the different faces of it is. But so those are the two high points from the event that I hosted last night.
Well, thank you. Well, hello, everybody. I guess I'm the host by default today. So I guess we'll have a round of check-ins.
Hello.
Unless there's any bullying, I'm going to just sit back.
Well, maybe I should just, because I have to go at 11:30, and I'll put a link into here because I've written an extensive article about how we can address what I'm calling deranged trunk mass psychosis, which is a very evocative term, creates a lot of polarity reactions. And I've gone into great detail to understand people's objections to using the term. And I've been listening to it and writing into that. But the song that I shared last night, which was based upon a previous event that I hosted, where we had 150 people there and they submitted over 100 chants that they want to use at the rallies. I was blown away by the crowdsourcing response to it. It was just, so I went through and I picked out the ones that I felt, yeah, this could fit into this song structure. But I provided the overall framework, and the title of the song is Let Equity Ring, Let Freedom Sing. And the song went down very well last night. It's a very inspirational song, and I used two prompts. I used the two major prompts. One was Gregorian chants, and the other was hip hop. And it was amazing what came out. So I'll share that link, and if you feel so inclined, you can listen at your own time. But thanks for letting me do a check-in.
Well, I'll jump in. I'm in Portugal, writing a book with my wife, Rosalie. It's called This Shit Works and Why It Matters. And doing interviews with folks. And I'm also, I have an existing set of cards that I worked on with Dave Gray. I have anyway. I have a blurry background on, so it won't show anyway. And I'm putting them into their stories with their things, how they fit sort of my hierarchy thing. And I think with the book, I'm going to be offering people they can either download a PDF for a couple bucks or get a $10 to get the cards, because you can use them. They're fitting into these stories, so it's a story framework kind of thing. And so I'm writing the stories of these people. So, what it's about is people repairing local economies, and that's what we gather to our conferences, Neighborhood Economics. And so I'm going to interview all of them. And I'm also asking them their moral moment. Like, they're not in Gaza. Why are they working on buying back the block for, commercial real estate in Black Wall Streets or whatever? What's the thing that is their reason that keeps them at that problem? And sometimes it's intergenerational, and sometimes it's just not but there's a thing that keeps them going. So I'm saying what works and to show that it's replicable, and but then how they came to it, and their moral moment is when they realize, oh, this is my work to do, this is what I'll do, this connects to who I am. So it's kind of fun, and I'm making new card sets. I went and bought 6 envelopes for the next 6 stories, to make the cards that are unique to that organization, and then see how they fit it into my other card deck, if that makes sense to folks. I've got these are the players in the neighborhood decks, and then I'm saying, oh, and in this neighborhood, this is the stakeholder you need to influence, etc. So anyway, and everybody is in the wiki too. So I think it's could be a book that if you're into the stuff I'm into, people will really like it. Because it's going to be fairly exhaustively researched, and with stuff in the wiki that relates to all the ways they're doing stuff. And if people don't like it, I like doing it. So but there is a publisher that's interested, and we have an editor and stuff. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. Spain is easier to write in, because I know what people are saying. In Portugal, I understand the sound of that they're making, so it's lots of noise. So that's my check-in. Okay.
I'm actually going to check in before Rick leaves, because I want him to hear this. On Sunday, I went to the Pride event in my town, and I'm so glad I went. There were hundreds and hundreds of people in the streets for blocks, and everybody was happy, and there were rainbows and children and dogs, and it was really much needed. We even had one Republican show up, one only, but we were happy to have the one. But I'm bringing this up because since that, I mean, on that day, I was just grateful to be in the town I'm in. But since then, I felt such a wave of depression, and have been hearing that from other people as well. Community engagement, absolutely. I don't want to leave my town. I feel insulated here with loving, happy people. But, what's really striking me though, well, first of all, I mean, Rick, when he said that people in the mainstream, I don't watch mainstream news, so it's shocking to me that people don't know about these protests that are being planned, because on Facebook, we all know about them. In fact, we're being warned if there's any violence to sit down. I saw Craigslist ads, one of them for people to show up wearing red, white, and blue in Washington to make it look like there are more people attending the event. I saw another Craigslist ad. And again, it makes me wonder, like, are these things even real? But they appear real, where they're paying people in cryptocurrency to really be, bullies, like the whole, the Proud Boy types of people. And I know that's real because I hear the local chatter. So it's really very scary. But I bring it up because of the mental damage that's being done to people. And it's overwhelming. So I just wanted to, oh, there was one other thing on the OGM mailing list. Somebody, I don't remember who, put Peter Coyote's suggestions, and somebody else came back against it. And I didn't have the bandwidth to really go into a detailed pushback. But one of the things that Peter Coyote said, and I really agreed with everything he said, but the first thing had to do with organizing and having women do it. And the pushback came from somebody who was saying, no, that's not true. I've seen things organized by transgender people and gay people and women and all that. And what I wanted to say is, yes, but in all those cases, there's sort of a balance of energy. And honestly, anything that I've ever seen organized by men usually has some bullying, some coercion, and it leads to corruption. And I just have to say that because I don't see that in events that are organized by women. And I think that that piece that's connected to force is important to recognize. So that's my check-in, and that's what's been on my mind.
I'll just quickly respond to that because I have to go at a half hour. But one is a book by Rebecca Traister, who written Mad as Hell, and it's about the unrecognized influence of women on human rights, etc. It's an amazing book. That's well worth. And then the other one I saw, if you're not watching mainstream media, is Velchi interviewed Joe Walsh, and I'll put this into link. He's come out with a book, and he was the Tea Party guy who shouted out Obama, and he's turned coat 7 years ago. He's come out with a book. That one MAGA guy who came, that's peeling off the MAGA crowd. And this, if we can keep on chipping at the wall, then more of them will start to see light of day. You got to watch. I'll put the link in for this interview.
Thank you. Okay, Mark passes. I'm going to start calling on people. I'm not Jerry. I can't take all this silence. Come on, jump in.
Or you could just let people talk top of mind, whatever's top of mind, rather than check in, whatever people feel they're called to speak to, whatever you feel.
I'll jump in. So what Kevin was saying is how he's out writing a book, and how, I think he said something like, if it doesn't resonate with anyone, well, it's resonating with me right now, like the process of writing it. And I'm finding that that's really an interesting, like, meta level to the stuff that's really calling to me. It's things that I am ostensibly doing to help other people through a situation that I'm experiencing the same thing while I'm making it. Like, I've solved the problem and now I want to help them solve it, or I'm enjoying making it, or finding satisfaction and meaning in creating it, in the same way that I'm hoping that other people find satisfaction and meaning out of consuming it. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. And I'm wondering if the rest of you are finding that the projects that you are most committed to, the ones that why it matters to you, is something because it feels good to do it for whatever reason. It's meaningful for you to do it. So I'm curious about that.
Well, I'll go. Kevin, when you spoke, I resonated with you, obviously. We're up to the same systematic change. Scott, when you spoke, I resonated with you because we are the change we wish to be. What I'm noticing is we're very passionate people, and we try to connect with the right people, but often whatever is front of mind and we're explaining ourselves, that's how we show up to that person, and it could be perceived one way or another way, and we just kind of shift and play through life trying to figure out who to connect with to accelerate the things that really matter to us. And if we were in a small little community, hanging out with Stacy and like talking on a Saturday morning or a Sunday brunch or going to church or whatever, we would be coalescing and locking arms and building things together because we're in a local experience. And because we have this internet and and we're all just so all over the place, it's chaotic. Our brains are not able to connect with so many possibilities, and no wonder we have neurodivergence increasing over time. And I think that if we operate in smaller, closed feedback loop mechanism networks and communities who and we're connecting with the people that really resonate with us and we resonate with them, we can accelerate change. And so I'm bringing my frustration to this call because I'm having a hard time. I created we created, a bunch of us created a system to do that, and I'm having a hard time figuring out why are the small systems I'm in not doing this better? And I'd love to play with you and figure out why and like really experiment because when after this call, we tend to just go and do our own things. And some of us kind of connect and do things on the side, but I feel like we could be more effective. Ramsey, thank you for our call yesterday. Was it yesterday? It was wonderful to connect with another networker. Stacy, you and I talked. Some of you have, come in and defined how you thrive so that I feel like, okay, now we can start playing this game. How can we support each other in this small network thrive? Because there's a bunch of leaders and brilliance in this room right now. And if at the end of the week we don't know, we're not celebrating, right? And together, we're not doing something right. Or we could do better. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
So I'd like to pick up with where you left off. Um, so I don't bring a right or wrong to it, or at this stage, or for that matter, even a frustration. It's more a, growing level of inquiry and a growing level of fire, elementally sort of urgency, um, to to find more coalescence. And I think that happens at a more fundamental emotional level, by and between the people as opposed to projects. And connecting on a alignment, an emotional alignment, connection, relationship, and embracing, supporting each other on that level, which elementally is like water. It's all about water. And there is no life without water, without feelings. There's lots of fire. But on an emotional level, if each person and their project is in a silo and there's nobody external to their project providing support as community, even if it's virtual, even if it's online, scattered all over the globe physically, if that water isn't there, it's going to be really impossible for any of these projects to thrive. So I'm like halfway through registering on your platform, which I love. I'm loving the registration process. I had my own sort of version of that in an earlier incarnation in a past, project 10 years ago, whatever. So like you're making manifest something that I envisioned. And from a kairotic standpoint, I'm celebrating that in discovering your work. And I hope you and I to have a one-on-one soon. And um, and all of the people I am collaborating with connected to um, my own partners, my own entities, all of that. Um, there's a serious commitment I feel to that level of support and connection. And I find the more I stir in and prioritize the heart-centered stuff, the easier it is to energize it, to sustain it, and the more joyful and flowing the work itself doesn't it like it's feeling less and less like work every day, and I'm accomplishing with others more and more, and it's just happening. And egos are not being provoked, protections are not being provoked. Nothing I'm involved with has a proprietary dimension because I've 7 years ago shifted into a non-transactional frame. So I serve where I feel pulled to contribute. Um, and yeah, I guess I'm complete with that.
All right, so Jesse, I also have been participating as much as I can in your ongoing development network, and haven't completed one of my tasks, but I'm getting there. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I was having a a very deep and productive career chat with Gemini that I was not expecting because I've never really had a conversation that way before. And one of the questions I asked, which was the suggestion of my son, because I said, I'm really afraid of this. What if it doesn't work? This great idea that I'm really excited about. What if it doesn't work? And he said, well, ask it, how is this going to fail? Give me 5 ways. Give me 10 ways that this is going to fail. And it was a brilliant question because when I asked, I got a list of things that I said, yeah, I see that. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to admit it, but that's true. And the best thing for me was that they were mostly under my control because, I'm lucky that way. I trip over myself more than I trip over other people. So I could say, oh, okay, these are things that I can actually control. But I would suggest if you haven't done that, it was a very productive exercise for me to say, okay, I believe in this. I deeply believe in this. I love this. Why is this going to fail? Why is it not working the way I want it to? Because we are working in real systems. We're inside of a real system, and that system is not up here. Somehow the model and the system are not quite aligned. And you might find, oh, if I flip this lever, that's going to help make this more what I envision. So
Have you done a graphic on that, Scott? Have you drawn, this running into this with this, it'd be neat to look at.
Can you be just a little more specific, a graphic on what, my process of interacting or what I came up
Yeah,
with?
the things that you said, I run into this, I don't run over myself or whatever. Just, there was a lot of movement and flow in how you described how you act. And I just wonder if it could be a good picture.
How I
Yeah.
interact with the LLM. Okay, interesting. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You described a series of reactions that seems like it would be interesting to see what those vectors are.
Gil, you're muted.
Scott, Kevin saw what you were speaking visually, and he's inviting you to render it visually as you see it, which is a lovely idea. I'm really grateful to all of you this morning. I've been finding it hard to find a place to start, um, and and actually have not been listening well. Feel kind of disorganized in my being and mood here, and it's partly a reaction to the political situation and my fears of that. Which I've acknowledged the last few days more than in the last few months. But Doug, thank you for what you said about prioritizing the heart-centered and having things evolve from there. I've been struggling with an observation lately that I'm being much more effective in reaction and response to other people than in initiating my own stuff. There's writing I want to do that I'm not writing. I'm alive in conversations. I'm really enjoying the coaching work I'm doing with people, feeling like I'm being a great contribution to folks. But I've been troubled that it's not the stuff that I'm initiating. It's, I've called it reactive, but I don't have to call it reactive. Doug, you've given me an opening of how to hold it in a much more gentle and live and generative way. So really, thank you for that. It's rippling. And Scott, the failure question is so important. I've been oriented a lot lately around the question of what might be possible, which I learned in my days at Palo Alto from outgoing assistant city manager there as a kind of universal solvent in meetings and conversations where folks are stuck. And not what is possible, not what you can prove is possible, not what you want to debate for, but just the soft, what might be possible here. And your question is the complement to that of how could this fail? I would ask you not why will this fail, but how could this fail? Because it's even bigger universe. And it reminded me of I took on a huge entrepreneurial project in the early 1980s. And I started by talking with everybody I knew, asking who should I talk with about this. And the call, without going into all the details of the call led to somebody, I described the initiative we were trying to mount. And she said, interesting idea. It will never work. Let me tell you why. And she started to rattle off reasons. She was at reason number 8 before I could get my pen and paper working. And she continued for 37 reasons, just like nonstop. Here's all the ways this will not work. And it was a moment of transformation for me because I didn't say, oh shit. I said, thank you for giving me a whole list of mistakes that I don't need to make. I will make other ones, but I'm not going to make these 37 ones. And it was a massive reframing for me in how I approach my life, the world, the things that I do. So thanks, Scott. Thanks for the reminder of that.
Gil, the thing that surprised me the most was I felt a sense of empowerment when I saw them because they were, oh, I can do something about that. I can't do something about that. Okay, well, I'll focus on this one. And I just felt better about it. And I thought that I would feel worse.
There was someone, we were in a support group for freelancers, solopreneurs the other day or yesterday, and someone said, I really just don't know what I want to do. There's just so much out there I can do. Just finished watching the Oceans documentary. By the way, it's so moving that if I think everyone should watch it. That's a should, not a could. um, but I suggested the journaling activity to not just write what you want, but what you don't want. Like how you don't want to spend your day in front of a computer being a cat meme for 8 hours a day, or not interfacing with people. You just go into a stream of consciousness of what isn't something we want. And it does bring up part of the brain that doesn't have access. So I really appreciate the both sides activity.
Well, Scott, I'll just jump in. And my wife and I have been business partners. Is she still there? I don't, anyway. And I always imagine how big and world changing it can be. And she always does what you do, is figure out what can go wrong and make sure it doesn't happen. So I don't have any skill that way, but she doesn't have any skill imagining, a new world. So it works out okay. Anyway.
I'm hearing an interesting shift, and I'm not sure how it evolved, or I don't even know how to explain it, but I I like what I'm hearing, like when I hear Gil and Scott talking about embracing what could go wrong, as opposed to, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it, and I'm wondering, yeah, I'm just wondering how that is coming into play. I'm glad it is. I'm just, it's surprising me a little in a positive way.
I I think I think there's a proto dimension to this, which is what's the underlying intention or attachment, whether you're looking at the positive or the negative. And if I'm rooted in fear and scarcity, then I'm looking at the negative and it's fueling that, it's reinforcing that, it's supporting that. And the positive is antagonistic to that. So I'm not going there because I'm proving, then I would be invalidating me. And if I'm rooted in the positive, if I believe the universe is fundamentally abundant and love and light is actually the default omnipresent if we choose to open ourselves up to it, then I'm going to be drawn, attracted, and also ultimately, I guess, also projecting light. And I'm not going to be attracted to the negative. I'm also not going to be reactive to the negative. I'm going to embrace it as pointing to things to inquire into. And I think it's really easy to get sort of fooled and caught up in the expression and not recognize the underlying driver, not just in self, but in others, So, yeah.
Do you sense a shift, or is any shift you may sense more a reflection of who you're surrounded by?
I think, when people are in feeling, they're in learning. Being in feeling is opening up. And, the dystopia and the insanity out the window is ramping up. So is the emotional underlying effects. So if you have everybody going into feeling, there is also a tremendous opening in that. There's an opportunity in that. And that opportunity can be used for evil, it can be used for good, right? So, the forces of darkness are really good at, taking advantage of that and fanning flames. I think, it's all the opposite is also possible. And group, folks sitting in this room and the tens of thousands of other gatherings like this, comprised of people centered in similar ways to the people in this room, they do have an energetic, projective energetic impact and effect on the world, even if they're not yelling and screaming. And the more of that, it's about showing up. It's about bringing that, being that, not talking about it.
Doug, I think a smile is everything in a day to someone. It's infectious. It changes their day, and they go and pass it on to the next. And a frown does the same. I really believe that every complaint is a gift waiting to be opened. Wrote a whole course on it, complaint therapy, a long time ago. And the emotions are hard sometimes, and there's an art of suffering. And I learned that from Thich Nhat Hanh. That's my teacher. And so many others, Ram Dass, so many. But I've noticed that those who inspire love and support and reciprocity create great things, and a smile starts it.
Hey, everybody. I am feeling that it is time to step away from tools like AI for a brief while and go internal, really dig deep and and connect locally, however we define that. I think there's a lot of deception out there and falsehood being spread. And the tools are interesting, they're fun, but I know that Engelbart's research was a lot of the human factors. How do people collaborate? How does a team work every day on the goal? So I think there's lessons to bring more wisdom into how we operate. So yeah, that's what I want to say for now. Other things will come to mind later. Thanks.
When Scott was speaking, it reminded me, as I'm often reminded, how enjoyable this work is. Like, because we are, we have a sense of purpose. We have a meaning in our lives. The work that we're doing, the connections that we're making are kind of moving us forward. For most of my life, early in my, when I became an adult, I guess when I was 18, I had this idea and mission that I wanted to help as many people as possible, but I turned that internally and selfish, in that I thought the answer, the solution to achieve that mission was to become rich, that through money, I would be able to help as many people as possible. And so, I was always a curious, information gathering person. So I continued to do that, of course, but I focused all my attention on financial information and on money. because this is the game. This is the world that we lived in. And it was weird because when that game failed me, and I had a failure, and I had to rethink what's my next stage? What am I going to do with my life? Where am I doing? Because that wasn't working. That didn't work. I had some success and then failure. But even when I was successful, I mean, how was I really helping people? Buying drinks or dinners or whatever for my friends. That's not, I mean, what kind of help is that? That's really not that much. It's not systemic. It's not changing their lives, right? So it wasn't until, I went inward and then I start thinking about these things, and then the system that I was learning about and realized, holy shit, we can make it different. And when that idea popped in my head, it actually felt foreign. Like it wasn't me. It didn't come from me. I didn't discover it. Like somebody almost like put it in my fucking brain. And at that moment, I was really upset and sad and crying because all of a sudden the information that I had was a responsibility. I had to now share this and develop it. I couldn't just ignore. There was actually something that I could do. That cliche of changing the world, like that only takes one person, whatever, is kind of true. But I didn't see myself as that, like an active person. Almost felt like I'm in the world, but I'm separated from it. At least in the past, I did. I'm gathering all this information, but it's for me. It's for me and my team and my friends and my tribe. It wasn't really cohesive and collective and unified and for everyone. And so when this idea, when we started working on this stuff, everything just changed. But now over time, I've come to accept it and appreciate it and recognize it and really get into it. And it's great actually now because it's given me that meaning, that sense of, why I'm here. Like, what else are we going to do except for try to make things better for everyone?
Hi, Dave. I wish I could explain to you what this call is about, but I don't know. Does somebody want to?
I don't need explanations.
Okay. I know it's nice. I know it feels good.
I do want to share that recently the word agreement keeps on showing up. And Ramsey and we talked about the 4 agreements, and then it showed up in our Slack channel. We're talking about how that helps coalescent emergent properties. I really do believe, and I'd love to have a conversation around agreement reality. What that means to you, how does it happen? How are you bringing that into your days? So that I really do think if there's agreement upon in a group, that unnecessary conflict can be avoided. And then those areas in which conflict does arise, there is respect and compassion, but it has to come from agreement first before the words are even spoken. I'm curious about how that's showing up in the communities that you facilitate, lead, and are a part of.
I have something I can share on that. I don't know if it's not specifically agreement, but I do host a community that gets together every Friday, and the one rule that we have didn't come from agreement. I imposed it as the host. Is we just banish certainty. We're just not allowed. If you have anything that you're certain about, a dogma, an ideology, a belief, something that you're not going to change your mind about, you just agree to take it off like shoes and leave it at the door when you come in. It's like just like taking your check your weapon at the door, check your weapons at the door. And so that one little thing has really created a wonderful conversation space. I mean, just like certainty is the thing that leads to arguments. It leads to toxic kinds of behavior. It leads to, no, you're wrong about that, or I disagree about that, instead of tell me more about that. So I'll just put that out there. It's not necessarily something, it can be an agreement that can be very conducive to a lot of emergent things that you wouldn't anticipate or expect. Because as soon as you leave your certainty behind, your curiosity gets to come out.
So I don't know. Am I the only lawyer in the room? Any other lawyers here?
I don't smell any.
There you go.
You're only you're only sort of a lawyer, Doug. You're not exactly
I know I'm fallen, like Mormons.
lapsed.
I'm a lapsed lawyer. So agreement is really rooted in the law. Like that's where it comes from. And it's not about collective consent. It's just about memorialization of something that defines consequences in the face of breach. As a construct, that's actually its primary ingredients are an offer, an acceptance that indicates agreement as to the terms of the transaction and the consequences for breaking that deal. And law, on an extrapolated basis, is rooted in a series of rules, codes, and whatever that a population is subject to that defines the punishment in the face of violation. That is our legal system. If you look up the definition of law in Webster's, that's what it will tell you. And none of that makes any sense. Like
Well,
that's all of that is projected power, control, authority over, rooted in fear, rooted in power.
Well,
So the concept of consent by an individual to fill in the blank that has been granted by each individual in a group of people co-creating together can produce an agreement, a memorialization of their shared, an expression of their shared consent to whatever it is, without the power component being invited to that party. And so I've been doing unlawyering exclusively in new births and transactions, and I have never entered a courtroom.
Mhm.
And I was admitted to the bar in 1982. And from that date to the present, all I have done is agreements. And over that period of time, I've only had one agreement turn into an adversarial proceeding, and that was an arbitration.
Great. Great. That's great.
So that's my answer to your question. And yes, it's possible there are alternatives. But the agreement is the artifact and output and byproduct. It's not the process of coming to consent.
Agreement seemed like somebody wants me to agree with them, and I'm just not sure about that.
Yeah, I don't remember what the question was that Doug answered, but I like the answer. You know, the law may be expression of power and all that other stuff that you said, Doug, but what we're really talking about is how do we coordinate with each other? How do we get along and do shit together? You know, and we talk to each other. The basic format of that is that we have conversations with each other, you know, and we ask things of each other. We make promises to each other, and sometimes we keep our promises, sometimes we don't keep our promises, and that's sort of the matrix of life. And on this business of agreement, I learned a lot from from my study of the language action framework with Flores and John Searle and others. And a really important distinction in there has just been resonating for me, and it's like, you know, is in all my work all the time, is the difference and the confusion between assessments and assertions. Okay. So assessments are opinions. We have opinions about stuff, you know, like, you know, I like this, I don't like that. Trump is good, Trump is bad. Honey, it's hot in here. No, it's cold in here. Opinions, interpretations, it's the life of what humans do, and they're not right or wrong. And assertions are statements that are testable, verifiable, groundable, provable. Like, you know, it's 67.5 degrees in here, which is a really different kind of statement than I feel hot. 67.5 degrees can be verified, can be, you know, can be attested to, and people can look at the thermometer and agree. I feel hot, no, I feel cold. There's no resolution to that. There's no point in having an argument about that. And we argue a lot about our opinions. And it's, you know, it's kind of a pointless exercise because you can't come to an agreement about an opinion. You can agree on what to do about it. You can agree about how to take care of each other in relation to the difference. Which is why, Jesse, I posted that it doesn't start with agreement. Agreement comes out of a relationship and out of a conversation. And at best, it's one that's paying attention to what each other cares about. You know, I keep coming back to the hot cold thing because it's one that my wife and I do periodically. She says it's like too cold in here, turn up the heat. I say, no, it's too hot, turn down the heat. Well, you know, there's no right answer to that. There's what do we do? How do we live in a house together in a way that takes care of each other's comfort because we love each other and have different perspectives? And so, you know, choosing where to argue and where to agree and how agreement comes about seems so important. And like, again, I see this all around us. We are lost in arguments about interpretations, and there ain't no point in that.
It seems to me, Gil, that there's more point in having the conversation about I feel hot, I feel cold than there is about it having a discussion about it 67.5 degrees, because so the interpretations and the opinions in a way matter more than the verifiable facts. So I think there's more point to having the conversation about the opinion than there is about the facts, really, because but I mean,
yeah, Dave, having the conversation about it for sure,
yeah.
having the debate and argument and trying to find a right answer, not so much.
Right.
Having a conversation about, well, what do we do about this? Here we are, you know, with some level of commitment to each other, whether as a married couple or 8 billion people on a planet. How do we figure this shit out?
Yeah, so there is a point. It's just that there's no point to arguing, is what you're saying, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Jesse. If only we knew. Welcome, Ken.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, where you might be.
You should grab the recording and play it at 8x to catch up.
Well, I just thank you, everyone who shared. I'm really just processing it all. I might want to listen to the recording afterwards a little bit more. Who would have known that when you get married, hot and cold really does make a difference. And when you wake up and when you go to sleep really does make a difference more than anything. Those little small things matter. When you said certainty, it really did open my brain. Dave. And the indicators of certainty, I think we're just oblivious to them when we're experiencing it, but we can see it when it's happening. We're like, oh, that person's certain. Or maybe we don't even see it. We're just like in our own certainty when we see someone who's certain, and then we react and then we're like, oh no, I'm more certain. And it's just very, very simplistic, and I love it. I absolutely appreciate you bringing it up. And I'm just curious, like if someone notices it, or does someone else have to notice it for them in your group when it does show up?
Well, I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that. We do breakout groups, so that creates because we have about 40 people show up this call. So
Right.
what one thing that we say that I kind of the parameter that I give people is you don't have to be a hostage to anyone. So if someone's not listening, or they're being a know-it-all, or they're being a windbag, which are kind of like the two things I try and steer people away from. You could just leave. Even if there's only two of you in a room, you don't even have to say a word. You can just poof like a Harry Potter into a cloud of smoke and disappear into another breakout room. And the guidance that I have there is, if you find yourself alone in a room, then spend a minute with yourself and ask yourself if maybe you were being a windbag or a know-it-all, and enter the next space with a little more humility and a little more listening. And we have some people who are, let's say, on various probably on various spectrums, who sometimes lacks the social self-awareness to realize how they're coming off, and we try and be gentle, I think, with them, and compassionate. And Jerry has some of that here, I think, sometimes. It's like it's something to be so there's a little bit of, I mean, there's enough people there that it's now somewhat self-policing. I mean, no one's had to be exiled, but some people, come and they don't come back because it's, maybe they have a lot of certainty and they are unable to let go of it or whatever. Someone's pretty self-selecting, I think. Doug, you've been there. You might have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a rabid fan of the community Dave attracted, and referencing back to that thing about the underlying spirit behind the setting of frame and boundaries and terms, that the invitation it's a very open, very safe, very inviting space, and it attracted a group of people with striking homogeneity when it came to those traits. Like anyone I've met there is open, is curious, is generous in sharing, bringing their gifts, and it's just pervasive across the mix of people. And I think that has a huge amount to do with the source energy that drew everybody to it, which is Dave. And that is not to be like minimized in terms of his energetic powers, both of attraction and of influence and giving. So that's my answer.
Thank you. And Dave, I've been there,
Thanks, Doug.
been to your group, and I echo what Doug is saying. I don't know where the link is, but it's lost on my calendar, so I'll have to get it again. Thank you.
Well, I mean, the thing that I like about, I mean, selfishly, it is for me. It's the kind of the kind of energy I want to hang out in, and I had that intention when I created it. And like what I like is surprises. I like serendipity. I don't like arguments. I don't find them generally. I think what Gil says, that they are often about opinions and and unresolvable, and often they're about other things like status and authority and power and so we really, and there's a difference, I think, between having a rule that is a rule of set things that you have to follow versus a rule of just like, hey, there are a couple things that are prohibited and anything else is allowed, until we discover something that's like really disruptive or problematic. Anything's cool as long as it, we're in my group, we're there to talk about creative work and creative energy. And if you already know the answer, it's not creativity. So by definition, creative work is about, things that we don't know yet or we can't envision, or, the reason you do the creative work is to find out what it's going to look like, not because you already know what it's going to look like. So that one prohibition creates a nice little protective membrane within which we can explore almost anything. And almost anything does come up. Weird things come up. And it's a good reminder too. It's like, oh wait, I was being a know-it-all there, wasn't I? Sorry.
Just to restate the obvious, so much of the community does have to do with the convener and who attracts them. And the other piece is the curiosity. And those two are probably connected. But that curiosity is a really important point.
Yeah, and I will say this too. You can go to a lot of online spaces are kind of somewhat, people try to create consensus, and agreement, and they try and come up with rules, and because they're trying to do it as a collective. I like indie spaces. I like going to, Joe's bar that is Joe's eclectic, has, his rules, his point of view. If he doesn't like you, he'll kick you out, Um, I like those kind of spaces, and they can be a lot more idiosyncratic. They can be the unique. There's a difference between an indie space and a chain, store. Every Starbucks, you can, if you're traveling and you want comfort and familiarity, you can go to Starbucks. You can also take a chance and go somewhere that it's got that's a single owner space. And I tend to prefer those spaces that have autocratic, idiosyncratic owners. I would say this would be one of those spaces. This is imbued with Jerry. He sets the tone and sets the rules, and it's a Jerry space, in a lot of ways. And so you have to shop around to find the ones that you like or you have chemistry. But I prefer those to the ones that often get all tangled up in their own knots about, what did we agree to? And then they end up getting toxic behavior. And because they have to have agreement and consensus, they have no way to shut it down, and people find, no matter what the rules are and agreements, people who want to find loopholes and troll it will do that. And so you end up with a lot of, I'm in one community right now that is really struggling because they're trying to let people be, say, you know, have freedom, but people are gaming that in all kinds of kind of not honest ways, I think. So I'll just put in a plug for, you know, make your space, host your space, decide what you want. Don't give a shit about anybody else. If nobody comes, then try some different, something different. Stop there.
Dave, it's kind of the same as your friendship group. One person might be loving sports and the outdoors, and another person might be like just love drinking. They just love drinking, going out in the town and nighttime, and of course they're holistic people and they have many different interests. But there's like this thing that gets awakened in you when you spend time with them, and that is part of you that remains dormant until you're in their energy field, and you're like, yes, more of that, please. And then when you're kind of missing it, you go to that person or you go to that kind of bar. I come here to get a sense of resonance and reset and rebalancing, and I love the diverse perspectives. And but yeah, you have a few set of friends, not just one. Very good, very good. Oh, and by the way, when you put all my eclectic friends in one room and in one party, it's crazy weird. Nobody is like they're not vibing because I have such an eclectic group of friends. It's an interesting thing, and so I'll leave it at that. That's always weird.
So I have something that's a little orthogonal, but connects. So I know, Gil, you created an AI alter ego of you, and Dave also created an alter ego of him. You know, fed liminal into and all sorts of other stuff, and did a sort of blast out to his crew. I'm lucky to be on that list, saying, "Here's the link. You know, take it out, give it a, kick the tires." And I did, and and I went pretty deep with my query, pretty personal and pretty deep. And what I got back was really rich, like really rich. And what some dots that connected, and this is literally, this week, around that in talking with some other people about AI, was how awesome it is to be able to have the benefit of the mind of Dave at beck and call without having to actually bother him in 3D with my shit. And it was, I know it was sort of like a real moment, in terms of the nature of the value of the offer of that resource being available. And and I thought about also, like, there's how powerful how powerful the potential of that is in terms of any one individual being able to serve and provide value to many, the one-to-many thing. And back in past life, I came from, entertainment industry and represent, being a manager of artists, right? And in that business, you have a human being who's the object of affection. And if successful, your goal is to provide that artist to as many people as humanly possible. But you only have one human being to work with, right? And so you spend a lot of time saying no rather than yes. And a piece of this AI puzzle is that it really enables an opening up of that bottleneck. And so I just wanted to share that because it was an aspect of AI meets humanness that I think is a real plus in the landscape of horrors and terrors and negatives and threats of AI. I think there are some really powerful, valuable upsides. And complete.
Thanks for that, Doug. I mean, some people have shared their conversations with that AI, and it's interesting that you feel like it was simulated a conversation with me, because I look at those and I'm like, I would never say those things. Those are not things that I would say, and they're not the way that I would say them either. So it's funny. I don't. It's something.
I'm so glad you said that because I was sitting here really disturbed by this whole thing. So I'm glad that you said that, Dave.
I
You're
mean,
muted.
those conversations are interesting when I read people share them with me and I read them. It's like, oh, it's interesting, but it's not me. It's not. It isn't.
Understood.
And my
Yeah.
experience is mixed, Dave. It's not me for sure. And I always reference it as like me in quotes because it's not me. It's not me for sure. But it's really striking. I mean, some people have said, this is amazing. It sounds exactly like you. And people who know me, as well as people who don't know me very well. And some people have said, it doesn't sound like you at all. And I find that contrast fascinating.
I think mine is much nicer than me.
Well,
those of us who know and love you know the nice side if you all tell it the other guy. I mean, look, we're complex, we're multifaceted, and we're different in different relationships with different people, right? It's like, we're like these, each of us these giant spheres, and we contact each other, we're touching at this infinitesimal tangential point, and we think we know everything that's behind the point. We don't. But so this is an assembly, and it's weird, and it's kind of fascinating. I don't know. I'm going to check it out. Maybe it sounds more like you than you think it does. Maybe my interpretation. We're going to argue about this, right?
Well, somebody on this group shared a really nice, I don't know if they're here, but it was a really nice article about cognitive symbiosis and how we might think of AI as, some kind of something that we dance with, and the way that we use, and the way that our environments and tools always become a part of our milieu. I can't rephrase it very well. It was a beautiful little article. It's on the email list somewhere.
think we're towards the end of our time. Ken, did you wanna
About
check?
11 minutes, Stacy.
Oh, is it 11? Oh, my
Yeah.
clock is fast. I thought it was 5.
No pressure, Ken, no pressure.
And
And I want to thank everybody. I'm just here listening, kind of quiet today. What came up for me with the 4 agreements, hey, Gil, were 2 things. Number one, I have Mexican ancestry, and I thought it was interesting about the Toltecs who were cannibals and did a lot of human sacrifice. But in the 4 agreements, or in the series of the 4 agreements, there's a little bit about my no means no, my yes means yes. I'm trying to integrate that with, agreements, keeping agreements, reputation, knowing that when someone says no, they mean no. And when someone says yes, they mean yes. How trust is human, and some trust is given to animals, some trust is given to machines, some trust is given to organizations, some trust is given to babies, some trust is given to grandparents. That's about it. But thanks. Enjoyed it.
It would be weird if we're all sitting in a living room or at a bar and it was this quiet.
I was on a call yesterday, hour and a half call with a friend of mine who's a scholar and activist, and we were going hot and heavy for a while. And at some point, she said something like, maybe we should invite in the quiet. And it was like a gentle fog just dropped into the conversation. And I had no words and nothing to say, and we were quiet together on Zoom for about 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, it was remarkable and beautiful. And it took a lot of delicacy to start speaking again, to gently enter the space without breaking it and continue the conversation with the sense of whatever had just appeared.
Yeah, I do think there's a strong need for that. As I became certified and as a mindfulness teacher, we were on Zoom calls for a good hour of silence at times. And there's an awkwardness to what you have to deal with in your own right in that. But just, yeah, I guess there would be meditation and silence in a retreat like that. But there's more of a permission space to be. But when it's like the jolt of it all is kind of interesting.
And silence doesn't always mean the same thing.
Mm.
And sometimes there's something underneath the silence that needs to be called out, and it's not always easy to discern which is which and when is when.
How many are actually looking at some kind of stimuli right now and not really being with each other? I'm very curious. Like, are you looking at email? Are you okay with the silence with each other? Just curious.
Like we're all
Yeah.
here. I think
Mhm.
we're all here.
All here, although I've been gathering up some of the dishes from last night, but listening intently.
I have a question for the group. What's the longest you've ever stayed silent?
3 days.
One day.
5 days.
3.
Friend of mine that he does 10 days every year.
Like audibly silent? Oh, I mean, what about mentally?
In a community with nobody speaking for 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
So by yourself, basically.
No,
I did 21 days.
Oh,
Really?
God, that would be painful
Well, it was actually
for me.
quite remarkable.
It might be painful for some of it, Stacy.
There was pain involved. It was 2 10-day retreats back to back. And so they moved us to a separate meditation hall when the second retreat came in. And on the third night of the second retreat, the Dharma teacher was a little bit unconscious and broke the news to me 13 days into a silent meditation retreat about the genocide in Rwanda. So I was in a pretty vulnerable space for that when that landed, and it was really, really hard to process that people were hacking each other to death with machetes.
What a strange thing for them to do, to introduce that into that space.
Well, she was doing a Dharma talk, and she was talking about, what was happening. And it was really, it was a very, very difficult thing to process. But I will say that.
So it wasn't total silence. There were Dharma talks.
The people were in silence. The teachers were not.
Gotcha.
And technically, you're not completely in silence either, because every other day you have a 10-minute interview with the teacher to make sure you're not having a psychotic break. Keep an eye on you, because some people really can't handle silence. So they just check in, how are you doing and what's going on and what's happening in your practice. And I sat for a number of years. I sat a retreat, pretty regularly. And one year I had the opportunity to sit 21 days, and it was pretty profound. I recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that after my 4th day is when I actually got the value. Because the first, I don't know why, but the 4th day, and I realized that, and we couldn't look at each other either, because I noticed that when I'm an American, I'm always looking at people, smiling, and I realized when I went to Japan, nobody looks at each other because they have their own space, and you respect that. And there was an off-put from that because I was raised in a place where, are we okay? Like through visual. So when I had that 5 days of no looking, no talking, I didn't have that feedback mechanism. Are we okay? I was left with myself. Am I okay? It was beautiful. And then I could go back to Japan now in in a new way, a new being. And 21 days is impressive.
Yeah, I don't sit retreats anymore anyway, because I've changed my practice, but I won't sit a short retreat because it takes 3 days for your mind to quiet down, and it's really hard. We call it the head snaps, because you sit there, you start to, it's lots of tiredness and aches and stuff. And usually around the 4th day is when you feel like, oh, I've climbed to the top of the mountain. Now I'm on the plateau. Now things are quiet. Now I have this big vista to enjoy. But it's a hard work to get there. And I've found a practice that lets me get there in a half an hour. So it's a lot more efficient for me.
Care to share that?
It's my Qigong practice, but it took 10 years to get to the point where I can get there in half an hour now through practice. So it's also cumulative of 17 years of Buddhist practice and, well, now 21 years of Qigong. But after 10 years of Qigong, I was able to get to the same place I get to on retreat in a much shorter period of time.
It does take a practice for sure. Takes me a few hours, not a half hour.
It wouldn't be the same to have the same experiences that of silence, these retreats, if we have mobile devices and interconnectedness, right? That's like breaks the kind of.
Yeah, the idea is you do not bring your phone with you on retreat. It's also a retreat from the world. The whole point is to go inside, just tune the world out.
That's what I mean. Like, I feel like maybe people are doing that less, even a few hours, like, just going to the woods, going to hike or whatever. You're breaking, you're kind of in silence mode, right? You can go inward. Not that you are, but you can. But now with all this technology, I feel like people are probably doing that less. I mean,
Yes.
certainly my family is.
Well, some of us turn the devices off one day a week.
Yeah.
It's always hard for me when I'm hiking out on the trails up on the mountain here, and I see people walking along on their cell phone, talking just as loudly as if they're in a restaurant where your voice carries. And it's like, really? Really? You're not paying attention to anything around you. You're sitting there making business deals on your phone. Go sit in your office, man. Like, do not disturb the peace of nature here. This is really
Ken, that calls for a
disturbing.
poem.
All right. I think I've mentioned before I subscribe to JAMA because they have some really interesting poems. And this one came yesterday. It's called Missing Father. And I'll share that the big reason I'm sharing this today is because I've been involved in cleaning out my garage for a big garage sale, yard sale this weekend. And I've been going through a lot of my life, and including correspondence between my mother and father from back in the 30s and 40s. So he's kind of present with me right now. The morning being too wintry for a walk, I think of my father trudging to the bus stop at dawn in all weathers to juggle numbers on paper across the George Washington Bridge. My twin sister and I, who would toddle to the front door, our pajamas hanging on us like wilted petunias, snorting back our tears, wailing, "Where's Daddy?" Mom would explain patiently, in her 50s housewife voice, that he was going out to make nickels. We longed for his deep voice rising from the worn pages of Beatrix Potter. In the long Jersey evenings, sitting by his side on the sofa, immersed in the familiar tales, we would chant with him the names of the 4 bunnies: Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. He was strong and steady in those days, before Parkinson's felled him in a slow death. All I wanted, searching for nursing homes close and comfortable, was a day when the only problem was the carrot missing from Mr. McGregor's garden.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you, everyone.
Father's Day to the fathers.
Love that.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank
Happy
you.
Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. That was good. All good.
Good day.
Good day, guys. Bye.
Day.